The grand ballroom of the Hope for Tomorrow charity gala sparkled beneath magnificent crystal chandeliers as hundreds of guests gathered for an dedicated to raising money for children's rehabilitation programs. Business leaders, celebrities, and philanthropists filled the elegant hall, while a live orchestra played soft classical music in the background. Waiters moved gracefully between tables serving dinner, and cameras flashed as reporters photographed the events. Honored guests. Among the attendees was billionaire entrepreneur Victoria Sterling, whose generous donations had funded hospitals and therapy centers across the country. Sitting beside her was her 10-year-old daughter, Sophie, who had used a wheelchair since a serious car accident. 2 years earlier, although months of rehabilitation had helped her regain some strength, walking without assistance was still extremely difficult. Doctors remained hopeful but could never predict when or if she would regain full confidence in her legs. As Victoria prepared to deliver a speech, Sophie's attention shifted across the ballroom. Near the stage, a quiet maintenance worker named Daniel Carter adjusted microphone cables and carefully arranged before stepping back to avoid interrupting the event. A widowed single father, Daniel worked at the convention center to support his young son. He quietly completed his duties without expecting anyone to notice him. The moment Sophie saw him, her eyes widened. "I know him," she whispered before Victoria could ask what she meant. Sophie gripped the arms of her wheelchair and slowly pushed herself upward. "Sophie," Victoria said with concern. "Be careful ignoring the surprised looks around her." Sophie took one careful step, then another. The orchestra stopped playing, as guests turned toward the unexpected scene with determination on her face. Sophie continued walking slowly across the ballroom toward Daniel. Victoria stood, frozen tears already filling her eyes. Daniel looked up, confused by the sudden silence. When Sophie finally reached him, she wrapped her arms around him. "I found you," she whispered. Daniel gently looked down at her. "Trying to remember, I'm sorry." "Have we met before?" Sophie smiled through happy tears. The day of my accident, Daniel's expression changed. Several years earlier, before becoming a maintenance worker, he had served as an emergency rescue medic. He had been among the first responders who arrived after Sophie's family's car accident. While firefighters worked to free her safely, Daniel stayed beside the frightened little girl, speaking calmly, reassuring her and encouraging her not to lose hope. "You held my hand," Sophie said softly. "You told me that courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about taking the next step even when you're scared." Daniel smiled gently. "I remember now." Victoria walked over, overwhelmed with emotion. "You were the medic who stayed with her." Daniel nodded quietly. "I was simply doing my job." Victoria shook her head. "You gave my daughter something no medicine could provide." As Sophie remained standing beside him, the guests applauded the touching reunion. Daniel looked at Sophie with pride. "It wasn't me who walked across this room," he said kindly. "You found that strength yourself." For everyone watching, the evening became about much more than a charity gala. It became a reminder that small acts of compassion can leave lasting memories, and that a few words of hope offered in someone's darkest moment may help guide them toward brighter days years later.